Good morning, everybody. Welcome to TechEM. Today we have a special seminar or a special discussion with Paul Walther, who has graciously joined us. Paul, you officially retired on the 31st of March, right?
Right. It's
So
my third day of being
of
retired, and
retired,
it's
and
still
you're here
right.
to join us to do a seminar or a discussion. So we're very happy to have you here. The point for today is just to really reflect on a career, reflect on all of the adventures you've been up to, and to share some fun stories of the people you've worked with and the things you've done. So, why don't we get started with, really, where did you start your scientific career? How did you become an electron microscopist?
Yes, actually, I started my scientific career as a biologist at ETH Zurich. But before that, when I more or less finished high school, I didn't exactly know what I would like to do. So I went to a career advisor. And I thought that he will take some tests and then the outcome would be the professions that I should select. Yeah. So I went there quite nervous and the career advisor came in, sat down on a couch, extremely relaxed, not what I expected, and just said, "So what? So what? Nothing else." And then everything was quiet. And I didn't know what to say. And I started to stammer and I said something that I found awfully stupid. At the moment it came out of my mouth. And he actually did not help me. He led me in the uncomfortable situation for ages. Yeah? And maybe later on, after an hour or so, he then said that when he saw me coming in, he exactly knew what I expected. I expected that he should told me what I should do with my life. But come on, he want to give me the message. It's my life. I have to decide what I gonna do with it. Yeah. And it's not his decision, but my decision. And yeah, that was a lecture for the rest of my life, actually, a very important lecture. And one should say that my generation was in the fortunate situation that we could choose. We had the choice. In previous generations, that was usually not the case. You either had to do the profession of your parents or you had to go to the army. That was more or less a possibility that you had. So usually, even this you could not decide by yourself. And we had a lot of freedom to decide what we want to do. But also, this is sometimes not so easy to cope with. So, but then I decided to do biology because I'm good in theoretical stuff, but not extremely good. And I'm quite good in technical stuff, but not extremely good. So I think biology was a nice decision. Yeah. And when I started, after I think it was in the sixth semester or so, I was looking for an occupation during the semester break. And that's when I got a recommendation I should go to that guy, Martin Müller, and maybe he would have something for me for a while. Yeah. So I went to him, and in a way, that was immediately kind of a good connection. I was very impressed by his personality, and he gave me a job for 4 weeks. Yeah. But then it came out 45 years where I stayed in electron microscopy then. Yeah.
It was the longest 4 weeks of your life.
Right. Definitely, yes.
So you met Martin, and how did he really give you the confidence? How did he get you engaged
Yes,
in the
okay.
lab?
Maybe I can share screen now and quickly show you this an image of Bruno Humbel, Martin Müller, and me, and that shows us a little bit in this how we looked at this time. Yeah. Actually, I don't know whether Bruno is already in here, but I should mention that he's standing. We're standing on a stairway here, but he's standing one step below me. That's why he looks so short and I look so tall. In reality, he's taller than me, actually. Yeah.
He's
And
not
Bruno,
here, but you
Bruno
can.
is not yet here, so too
No.
bad. But Bruno still looks pretty much the same, whereas I have changed a lot since these days. Yeah. And on the right hand side, you see Martin Müller. Yeah. And he really became kind of a role model for Bruno and me. because he was, way he runs the lab was very relaxed and very good. So I tried to learn from him, and I tried to keep some of the stuff I learned from him. And an example, once he let me operate the microscope, and once, of course, I did what most of the people do when they operate the microscope for the first time. They make a vacuum break. Yeah? And in German, it's called the Lufteinbruch. And this is a perfect word. Sometimes German language is great. It actually expresses the disasters that this can be. So I went to Martin, I rushed to Martin and told him that I have terrible problems with the microscope. And he reacted very relaxed. I was expect that he would kick me out of the lab then, but he came to me, helped me, told me exactly how the problems need to be fixed. And then he said, he didn't kick me out of the lab, but he just said, now you continue your work. And I was very impressed by this. Yeah. I recently, Helmut Gnagi said something similar in one of the tech meetings here. The discussion was how to take care for the diamond knives and to be careful not to break it. And of course, one person told a story about the student doing something awful with the diamond knife that broke it completely. And kind of people agreed that you should kick out the student out of the lab. And then Helmut Gnagi said, don't do this, don't do this. If something like this happens, you send me an email and I will replace this knife for you for free. To get this person another chance to do the job better next time. So it was a little bit the behavior of that generation. Of course, Helmut is the same generation as Martin Müller. It's a little bit the behavior of that generation that impressed me a lot these days.
But don't say that, because Martin's retired and we can't have Helmut retire. He has to stay with us forever. Helmut, you can't run away.
I don't know whether Helmut can retire, because
no, he's a hostage
for his company, I guess. And, so it's probably hard for him to retire.
He's a hostage. So it seems like Martin really inspired the scientist you came. Right. Who else also inspired you?
Yes, okay. I would very much love to mention two people that also inspired me. I could mention dozens of people, of course. Yeah, so I had to make this decision for two more people. And one, of course, was my official supervisor, and that was Hans Mohr. So he was on another part of the campus, so I didn't see him very often. So Martin was a person that really gave me the hints and told me everything. But Martin was not a professor. I think he even was not a doctor when we started. I think he finished the thesis, so that Bruno Humbel and I could do our diploma work with him. That's why he finished his thesis. He didn't finish his thesis for 8 years or so. Not because he was unable to do it, he just didn't care for this stuff. He was much more involved in new science programs and so on, so he did not finish his thesis until then. So my official supervisor was in fact Hans Mohr. And unfortunately, Hans Mohr was a rather shy and a little bit more introverted person, so it was a little bit difficult to get in touch with him. And here, actually, Danny Studer helped a lot. He had a very good connection also to Hans Mohr. But Hans Mohr, you see it from his Wikipedia page, he stayed during his whole career, he stayed actually at the same place, at the ETH Zurich. So this is probably not what we should do. But it worked out in this case, it worked out very, very well, because he supported two breakthrough projects. Yeah, he did not really invent them, I think. Strictly spoken, he did not invent them, but he was following these projects for probably 20 years. One is freeze fracturing, that's mentioned here. And the other is not even mentioned here, it's high pressure freezing. Yeah. So, as I said, he was probably not the inventor of high pressure freezing, but he developed and made it to a standard machine, which probably took 20 years. And I think it's a genius idea, because when you think of a delicate biological sample and how you prepare this is delicate biological sample for electron microscopy. It's not the first thought that you have to put it on a pressure of 2000 bars. That's really the last thing you would think about. But it's the perfect way to suppress the formation of ice crystals. And after 20 years, also with a lot of help these days, also with a lot of help of Martin Müller, actually, this machine became commercially available and was very successful since then. So I think from that point of view, Hans Mohr was really a genius person.
And you were lucky enough to have him as your PhD supervisor.
Right, exactly.
Lucky you, lucky you. And you said there was a second person? Who was the second person?
Yes, okay. And that was then, I chose Carl Zierold. I hope you can see it. He's the person at the right-hand side here with the circle, the yellow circle on it. And I also circled his excellent technicians, Sabine Dongard. She just retired recently, actually. Yeah. And you see me in the middle. That was actually the retirement. That's actually the last party I celebrated with these people. So, okay.
You are, just to make sure I'm not lost, in the yellow shirt, the Dortmund
right,
shirt.
That's a ganz yellow shirt from Borussia Dortmund shirt.
Mm-hmm.
Famous soccer.
Showing your colors. Any other EM people in this picture?
Yes, behind on the left-hand side, you see Henschel, Joachim Henschel, perhaps. I don't know whether you can see my pointer.
Yeah, we can see the pointer.
Henschel, yes, he later on spent a lot of time in Konstanz, and this was my direct boss, which is, you know, that's why I got retired. The name doesn't
It'll come to you in a second.
It will come to me later. Unfortunately, Karl Zierold, as well as Günther Schäfer. Herr Schäfer, so he passed away a couple of years ago. And this is Peter Herter here. He was my first diploma student, and he still is a manager in that institute. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
But I would quickly like to mention why I think that Karl Zierold was so important. I think his work is still a little bit underestimated. He did cryosectioning, and then he developed a cryotransfer for native cryosectioning to the field emission STEM cryo-electron microscope. And then he was not so interested in structure. He was more interested in ions, ion contents of this sample. So he did elemental analysis and elemental mapping of these ions with the help of X-ray, type of electron-induced X-ray generation. Yeah? And he was really excellent with this and way ahead of his time.
This would be really relevant to some of the work going on now. I hope his work is coming back into appreciation.
Yeah, right. I hope so too. Yes, he wrote a couple of very excellent publications that can be even easily found in the internet. Yes. Mm-hmm. So these are probably the two persons that impressed me most among many other people. Yes.
Mm-hmm. So you did, if I've understood right, you did your PhD at ETH in Zurich with Hans Mohr, and then you were in Dortmund for your postdoc.
Exactly.
But not with Carl, right? He was just with Carl.
I was with Carl there, yes, but I did other stuff because he covered this X-ray mapping so well that there was not much need that I do the same thing here. I already did during the first couple of years, what I did most was develop SEM methods for SEM samples, yes. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So that's what I wanted to ask. What was the topic of your thesis?
Right. The topic of the thesis was...
you have a picture. Well done.
Right. I have an impressive picture prepared. Yes, that's probably 1982, 83 or so. And in the background, there's a famous guy here, Rudolf Autrata. And Rudolf Autrata, I think his name still stands for the Autrata detectors. These days, these were by far the best backscatter detector. And he developed them in the former Czechoslovakia, I think. Yes, that was still before the fall of the wall. And it was a great event for him to come to Switzerland. And I was, of course, extremely lucky to do some work with him. And we checked the use of backscattered electrons in scanning electron microscopy, because his detector were so sensitive that you could do a couple of things that were not possible before that. But he was very strong with me. You see here, I'm very, very dedicated to get a good picture and to adjust astigmatism perfectly and so on. That's what I was actually quite good in. And so he brought his new detectors and we tried to implement it in our machine. And I tried to get the best pictures that were possible with it. And then this opened actually up for a couple of new things that could be done with this detectors. And I have to point out, I did not invent these things. I just kind of optimized this. All I'm going to talk about, it was not really my invention. I was really on the shoulder of giants doing this. I just tried to optimize this. And this was now that we could mixtures, usually use secondary electron image that comes from the surface of the samples with backscattered electron images that are more mass dependent. So here's secondary electron image that image the surface here, and the backscattered electron image they could perhaps use to see some gold particles, and it was already popular these days. Hans Schwarz was one of the pioneers of this method to do immunolabeling with colloidal gold. Okay, and now with the help of these backscattered electrons, one had an excellent tool to discern both signals. So to use the secondary electron signal, you see that's the left-hand side here, to see the surface of the sample, and the backscattered electron image that you see on the right side here, so see the distribution of the gold particles. And of course, later on, this was all analog, so recorded with films and so on. Later on, of course, this method was much easier to use when digital imaging came. So you could perhaps give two different colors to the two different images. And this is one of my favorite images that I took during my career. I think it's not even published ever, but it shows Streptococcus on lung epithelial cells. So you see nicely a little bit brighter the Streptococcus with a gray-blue secondary electron image. And then here in the background, you see the epithelial cells, and one has a feeling that the epithelial cells try to get rid of this Streptococcus, and the Streptococcus, they feel quite happy on the surface of the cell. And in addition, we did a surface labeling on this Streptococcus. It was against the so-called FBSA protein. No idea what it is good for or bad for, but it exists on the surface of this Streptococcus, and we could nicely label it with colloidal gold. And so the reddish signal is a backscattered signal, and the gray-bluish signal is the secondary electron signal. So that was one of the first things I tried to optimize during my thesis in Martin Müller's lab. And then actually we also found another application. Of course, these days freeze fracturing was a big method available. It's a cryo method, but usually, finally, before you put the sample into the electron microscope, you actually didn't do it with cryo. But okay, this is the first step here. A knife breaks the frozen sample, and afterwards the sample is coated with a thin layer of platinum that is shown a little bit darker here from a certain angle. And to stabilize the whole thing, the sample is then coated with a carbon layer with a thickness of a few nanometers. And now one has two options. The classical option is to remove the biological stuff here by an acid or something and just use this very, very thin film. This is a classical freeze fracturing method as it was optimized by Hans Mohr and of course also by other people. And what we then could do with our better quality of cryo-SEMs, we could directly transfer these samples in the frozen state into the cryo-SEM. Okay, that was what we did then in Martin Müller's lab, and later on I also did it. I think in all the labs that I went to, I was applying this method here. You need a cold stage then in the scanning electron microscope. and this looks like this, yeah. And then you can look at the sample. And again, you can select between the secondary electrons and backscattered electrons. Again, the secondary electrons mainly image the surface of the sample. And in this case, it's actually the gold, as a carbon layer. The carbon layers that we use as a support here, yeah. But it would be better to image the platinum layer directly. And this is then basically possible by using the backscattered electron signal. With the backscattered electron signals that gives a mass-dependent image, we could actually image the real, that's the platinum layers that was in touch with the biological structure. And some areas have a lot of platinum, so you would get a bright image in this area here. And then there are areas in the shade of the platinum coater. And here you would then get a dark image in your sample. And this is how the samples look like. So on the left-hand side, you see the secondary electron image, where that is quite contaminated with some ice and other stuff. But to a certain degree, the backscattered electrons that have a higher energy, they then occur from the platinum coating, and they can even penetrate through thin layers of contamination, as you can see here. And I would like to show, I think, this is another, later on, if I can continue a little bit, we combined this method with high pressure freezing, of course, which is a nice combination. And I actually just want to mention, this is a counter of our high pressure freezing that we are currently using, and it shows 24,000 shots that we did during the last 20 years. I think this is probably, I hope this is probably a world record for high pressure freezing. So, but what can you do then? Now, this is a sample of a pancreas, and it shows endoplasmic reticulum. It's now imaged with this cryo-SEM method. So, and we got results that are very well comparable with other methods. And now we see this is a cryo-SEM sample, and it's a little bit difficult to interpret what we see here. It's very similar what we see in this freeze-substituted high-pressure freezing sample here. We see the ER membrane. Here is a membrane. Here are the ribosomes. And then here is the cytosol, it's the cytosolic part, and then here comes the next membrane, and this again then is the ER, the lumen of the ER, and that's what we see here. Here we see the ribosomes, okay. Then here is a little bit of lumen of the ER, and then comes the next layer of ribosomes here. So what we can reach with this method is quite a good correlation between these days. Freeze substitution results and freeze fracturing results. And I will not continue forever here, don't worry. I come towards the end of this part. This is a yeast cell that I imaged with SEM, and I think it's probably the most beautiful image I took during my career of 45 years. Because it shows a lot of structural details. I always used this image to illustrate my cell biology lectures. And maybe I would like to put your attention into this area here. It shows a mitochondrion, and I will enlarge it a little bit. And one can see both membranes of the mitochondrion are in close contact here. So there is only a little small space between these two membranes. And I guess we pretty much got the same results when we then did this later on with a freeze substitution method, which I also used, but I did not develop new stuff, with one exception probably. In Martin Müller's lab, Bruno was mainly responsible for the freeze substitution stuff. And you see here that we got a very similar impression of the membrane layer. So we got a good correlation between what we saw in the cryo-SEM and what we afterwards also saw in the freeze substitution images. Yeah, okay, that's probably, for the moment, that's it.
Mm-hmm. So much interesting stuff. I'm struck, you mentioned your favorite image. Can you show it to us one last time, Paul?
Yes.
This image. So this is your favorite image. What makes it your favorite image? Is it the science? Is it the
Okay.
technique? Why is it your favorite image?
I think the contrast look very beautiful in it. We see the nucleus with nuclear pores. One can see vesicles. One can see a vesicle fusing with the vacuole. And I hope you can see that the vesicle here is pretty much free of dark dots, which
Mm-hmm.
may, to a certain degree, not 100%, but which may represent membrane proteins. Yeah. And actually, so this is free of dots, and here there are a lot of dots or membrane proteins. And maybe this is a form of fusion event here, because you see, this vesicles that fuses with the vacuole is free of proteins, and also this area is free of proteins. And maybe these vesicles here are waiting to get fused with the vacuoles. Well, I probably also like it because it also shows, and now I come to the bad part, it also shows the limits of this method. No, because we never are 100% sure whether this is a fusing event here. It could as well be a fissing event. It could be a vesicle that is released by the vacuole here. And we only get one shot from at a certain time point. We cannot see what was the case before and afterwards. And the other thing that shows a limitation of the methods that later on became very important, we could do this shadowing with platinum. And we were very proud that it works so well in our lab. But of course, it has a final limitation. You would never able to get atomic resolution with this approach for theoretical reasons, because the platinum, we are always imaging not the biological material, but we are imaging the platinum layer. And the platinum layer can only be brought onto the sample with a certain accuracy. So accuracy is probably 2, 3, 4 nanometers. Yeah, but there's no way to get to atomic resolution with this approach. So looking backward, I probably stayed too long with this approach. It would have been better during my career if I would have switched earlier to the pure cryo-TEM methods or so, yeah. Mm-hmm. But that sometimes happens when you are you're quite good with the method. Maybe I can mention this. I remember that the inventors of the photography, they were not good in painting. Yeah, that was in the 19th or even 18th century, actually, that people had invented photography. It was invented in several steps, actually. And what these people had in common, they couldn't paint very well. And that's probably why they were going for something new. Yeah, they were looking for something new. Now, I think I was quite good with these methods. I missed a little bit the moment when one should switch to another method. That is a danger in it.
Because you were comfortable. You didn't have the motivation or the stimulus to move on because you were doing just fine.
Right. That was exactly. I think looking back to my career, that was a certain problem. Yes, when I look back, I should have switched earlier. We had a plan to switch. That was probably 20 or 25 years ago. We had the possibility to buy a new fantastic microscope that would have allowed us to do cryo-TEM. But then, it was a hassle. We had to share this microscope with those material science people. You already mentioned that it is sometimes a little bit difficult. There is always a competition between materials science people and biological people. At least it was in my generation. I hope that the young generation does a better job with this now. And we then developed tomography, which was we applied tomography in our lab. It was also a great achievement, but I thought it's too difficult, too complicated when we start cryo-TEM with this microscope. And then it turned out we got then another microscope a couple of years ago, and with this one we also now try to get into the cryo-TEM method more well. And I think the person, Clarissa Reed, that now takes over my job, they will do a lot of cryo-TEM now. But of course, it would have been better if we would have started it 20 or 30 years earlier. Yeah.
They say, Paul, that hindsight is 20/20, meaning that you can always come up with all the things you would do differently when you look back. So
right, exactly.
I still think what you are describing is really impressive. There's one thing that I'm struck with, which is that you've talked a lot about cryo-SEM, but I think I know you more as the STEM guy. So when did STEM come into your world? And how?
That came actually when we could buy this microscope in 2002. Actually, we realized that STEM is, for many reasons, an almost better option than TEM. And in my lab, it was actually Christopher Buser that did pioneering work with this. And we, again, I would like to mention that we were not the first doing it. There was this this guy, this American guy, I always forgot his name, but anyway. And we realized that STEM has the advantage that we can go for thicker samples, than with classical TEM, because we don't have to worry so much for chromatic aberration. Because usually in TEM, the chromatic aberration of the lenses, of the objective lens, limit the amount, the thickness of the samples that you can use. I think I have a picture somewhere here about this.
Well, was it Rick Liepman? Reinhard suggested Rick.
Say it again, please.
Rick Liepman, as the gentleman from the US.
Yes, that's exactly his name. Yes, thank you. Yes, that's exactly.
Richard.
Richard Liepman. Yeah. And but what we then found out was that we really can look at thicker samples when we do STEM instead of TEM. And also we optimize to a certain degree a little bit the protocol for high pressure freezing and for freeze substitution. And one, I think that's my methodological papers that was cited quite a lot, is we started to add a little bit of water to the freeze substitution medium. And that was very much against the dogma of these days. And it was really an accidental finding, because I was showing the protocol for freeze substitution to a person, and I told him, try to avoid water to get into your freeze substitution solution. And he didn't follow my advice. He left the vessels open for a long period of time, and a lot of water could get into it, And but at the end, when we looked at these samples, they were better than what we ever had seen before. So we worked a little bit and tried to optimize this adding of water a little bit. And at least in our case and in many other cases, not in all cases also, this really improved the visibility of the membranes. And still, we do not know exactly why this is the case. It's too bad that after all these years, we still don't really know. So the working hypothesis, it's still a working hypothesis, is that probably membranes can get disintegrated by the organic solvents at the early stages of freeze substitution, and whether the remaining water would stabilize this structure a little bit. But this is only a hypothesis. We cannot prove it really. Other people think it has more to do something with recrystallization. That structures become more visible, because with the water, we would probably have some recrystallization effects. And I don't know the final answer, but that was one step that made us to develop a good protocol for this freeze substitution plastic embedding tomography stuff. And this then worked out quite well in our lab, and I would like to show one nice example from the work of our Andrea Bauer, and she detected what we think is a new organelle in blood cells, actually. Here it was in macrophages, but in the meantime, we found the same structure in different kind of blood cells too. And she called it the megapinosome. And you can believe in this megapinosome or not, but this is a reconstruction of of an area of the membrane system of such a macrophage, and this would then be such a megapinosome here. And I think here really the structure look great. The preservation of the membrane system is really very good with this method. And again, when we use them, we can go for thicker samples up to, with very good quality, 600 or even 1 micrometer thickness. At an acceleration voltage of 200 kV. Yeah, and that was also a little bit of success. So 7 years ago, we got our own 200 kV microscope that we didn't have to share with the material science people. And then this was actually then a good push. Also, the 300 kV is a little bit better. Yes. But you can even go for thicker samples with 300 kV. But even with 200 kV, we could go to reasonably thick samples. And I think we did quite well. A number of nice publications and the nice applications of this approach here. Yeah.
And I also have to commend you. We often have the problem that, you do something stupid, you drop the sample or something happens, and that's the best results you've ever gotten, and you can't figure out how. So well done figuring out that water was what was helping your name.
That's what I'm a little bit proud. I didn't have the idea, but when the results were here, I realized that it is something useful. That's probably what I realized in this case here. Yeah.
Very nice. I'm just watching the chat. There's chat going on, but people are answering, so this is perfect. I want to switch a little bit, and I know this is a pet topic of yours, so I'm opening a Pandora's box for you, Paul.
Yes, great. Mm-hmm.
You mentioned over and over again that you have not discovered anything.
Right, yes.
But that you've optimized it. And I know you have a unique perspective on what is an original scientific idea. So tell us about this notion and why this is a big topic for you.
Yeah. I would love to have if I would have made some really new some really new concept and I think I had a lot of ideas what to do, but usually it turned out that it doesn't work out at all. That was my problem. And first of all, it's a little bit hard what you would call a new idea. The one person once said, a new idea is nothing special. Everybody can have ideas. Perhaps everybody can have the idea, okay, let's fly to Mars. Okay, it's not difficult to have this idea, but then to develop all the steps that are necessary until you can fly to Mars. This is much more of an achievement than just to have the idea, let's fly to Mars. Yeah. So I think with high pressure freezing, kind of a similar story. I don't know. People could have the idea, well, okay, we know the laws of physics, and we know when we put a pressure of 2,000 bars to water, then it's not so easy anymore for the crystals to grow. But come on, it takes them 20 years to make a useful method out of this idea. Yeah. And it's hard to judge how important these ideas actually are. I think they are important, but they are very, very rare. And recently I had to review a grant application for the Swiss National Science Foundation. I'm not asked very often, but I was asked for that one. And all what they had available, what was described in this grant application was really excellent. Especially excellent was the CV of the person that applied for the grant. She really studied at the best universities of the world. She did fantastic publications, everything fantastic. I couldn't imagine anything better. And of course, I said, yes, you should support this grant application. And they did finally support it. But I was almost thinking whether I should write a joke into my review. I did not do it, but I was very close to do it. I would have liked to write, it's too bad that this person did not yet win an Olympic gold medal. That's probably the only thing she didn't do. Yeah. All the rest was so outstanding. Good. And also the equipment that she was planning to use, it was in this new Debauché Center, and they have by far the best equipment you can imagine. And so you bring together the best person and the best equipment available, then you have a very good chance that the outcome will be good. Yeah? But then the Swiss National Science Foundation made a very strong point about originality. They were saying that we have to have a lot of originality in this work. And to my opinion, this concept that did not show a lot of originality, yeah? Because just taking the best person, giving him the best equipment, that's great. That's what you should do, and it will certainly be successful. But well, I would not call this very original. On the other hand, we have to be fair. We have now almost 100 years of electron microscopy, and it gets more and more difficult to come up with original, completely new concept. Maybe, we don't know, maybe a clever person comes up with a completely new concept, but maybe it's just not possible. Maybe there are no more concepts out there for electron microscopy. So we have to try to optimize the existing concepts. I don't know.
But I think what you say is very important. We can all have these grandiose ideas of going to Mars, but it's the individual steps. It's the process that at times is really, really important that we can't overlook.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
In our preparation for this discussion, you also shared with me that one of the biggest things you had to learn was about teaching.
Right.
So tell me more about this teaching journey you went on.
Actually, when I got the job at Ulm University around the year 2000, I was not very experienced in teaching. I didn't do much teaching before. And when I had to teach the students, I was terribly nervous, terribly nervous. And I think for the first 2 or 3 years, I really did not do a very good job with it. And I'm glad that these people are spread over the world, I hope. I really wish that they all are happy, and they probably don't remember the bad teaching that I gave at the beginning. But I definitely think that I became much better over time. And I also got a little bit less nervous over time. Yeah, but I will come back to the teaching. But I also have a hobby, and the hobby is to play piano. And I also, when I play piano at home for me alone, then it works very well. As soon as I had a listener, even my wife or my daughters or so, I couldn't play at all. I got so nervous that I couldn't play at all. Now, to come back to our farewell party, eventually I decided I would like to do some piano playing during my farewell party, but I have to fight for me to get so nervous. So in this case, I think I finally, after all my experiences with the other teaching, I did the right thing. I brought my piano into the lab, and I forced my collaborators to listen to me. That was really bad. That was really bad for me. But I think it worked a lot. After having played a couple of times with them, listening to me, I really lost. I really lost my nervousity, and I could play quite well then before the audience on my retirement party. It worked.
You were wonderful. Well. You were wonderful.
Thank you. And of course, coming back to my teaching experience, so that was the first thing that I had to learn. I think regarding teaching, I became quite good in training people, especially in people that were extremely nervous when they had to give a first talk or so. I think I became quite a good teacher by telling them what you need is good preparation. And you need a good practice. You have to practice it in front of people a couple of times. And what we usually did, we went into the biggest lecture hall that was available in Ulm University. It's probably space for 300, 400 or even more people. And I sat myself in the very last row, and the person that needed to present was in the front, and they had to give me the lecture in the completely empty room, and I was sitting in the last row. And I think when you practice this thing, it can help you a lot.
This reminds me. So during our PhDs, we each had to present at the University of BC, where I did my PhD degree. And I was so nervous for this. Yeah. It was maybe, I don't know, 20, 25 people. I would shake so hard standing there that I could not talk. And I think if I could do a video of then and now where I do a presentation and people assume I'm completely confident, which is a lie. It's a journey for all of us. I think it's a good lesson for students to realize that even the old people are quite nervous. I missed your retirement party, Paul, because I was here at a conference, and on the day of Panos, Lucy Collinson gave a great presentation to the community here, and she might kill me. I hope she's not in the group, but she was terrified before. She was also quite nervous, and we all see her. We see these people, and we forget this. So thank you for sharing that. The fight with the nerves. Well done on overcoming them. I'm just looking at our list. So I had on this list, what is the paper you are most proud of? And you've shown us the cryo-SEM image. And you've mentioned the paper by Andrea Bauer where you introduced the water, but you haven't mentioned this one. This is the missing one. So tell us about this paper.
Yes, this is Wildcat et al. And the title is, I cannot read the title because it's stuck here, but here I can see it on my iPhone. It's Chlamydia abortus infection in cultivated cells. Yeah, okay. And the reason why it's one of my favorite papers, because we applied all the method we had available in the lab. It contained cryo-SEM work, it contained even immunolabeling, which we do from time to time. Often we are not so successful doing it. And of course, it contained stem tomography and all the methods that we have available in our lab. But I would like to make a point a little bit about high pressure freezing when we do high pressure freezing with no chemical prefixation and when we do high pressure freezing after chemical prefixation. Well, very often we know it all. We have to do a chemical prefixation because the material might be infectious and we have no choice. We cannot go to our high pressure freezing machines with infectious material, at least in most cases, and then we have no choice. But we should be aware that it always makes a difference. It makes a difference. Yeah? Sometimes the difference is neglectable, and sometimes it's not, but it makes a difference. Perhaps when these chlamydomonas, they have those, the cells got those kind of vacuoles that are filled with chlamydomonas. Here, you see it. And these are surrounded by a fantastic membrane system. It consists of two bilayers, actually. One can see it here. It's actually two bilayers. And we could preserve this well when we did directly the high pressure freezing. Later on, we continued the study, but then we are no longer allowed to use this infectious material in our high pressure freezing room. So we had to do prefixation. The result is still nice, but perhaps these membrane systems, we don't see it anymore. Okay.
So those are roughly the end of our questions. Paul, what is a question I haven't asked you that I should have asked you? And what is your answer to this question?
Well, probably nothing so important. Maybe there are some questions from the audience, maybe.
Yeah, if anyone has questions, you're welcome to jump in. But Paul, really, what is the secret you're not telling us that we should hear? No incriminating evidence.
No, I don't know. I don't believe in secrets so much. I have a question should be, what are you doing now? You are now on day 3 of your retirement. That's probably a question that worries me a lot right now. That's a question that worries me a lot right now, because I was very happy during the last year or 2 years. We had a wonderful group in Ulm, really fantastic people, fantastic young people, and everything ended up with this great symposium and this great party. And it was a I really had a glamorous life, I would say, during the last couple of months. And everything, people organized a party and they did everything so much better than I expected. It was really fantastic. But I knew already then this party marks the end point of my scientific career. And then I will get retired. And then I will probably drop into a big hole. Yeah? And this is exactly how I feel right now.
We won't let you.
Such an easy feeling, actually. Yeah. And I have now to find new things that are important in my life. And the things I'm doing currently, this interview is the last glamorous event now during my career. In the afternoon, I will probably mowing the grass here in our backyard. That's probably what my profession for the afternoon. I'm very glad that I have a little grandson and I can take care. Tomorrow I can take care for him. This is really great.
And your piano?
Yes, I can do a piano playing. And I'm playing in another rock band, actually. We had our first rehearsal on Tuesday. Last Tuesday, we had our first rehearsal and it went out quite well. But, there are hundreds of similar, alone in Switzerland, there are hundreds of thousands of other bands of old men that try to play some old rock and roll music. So right now, this is not yet very glamorous. Maybe it will get better with time, but
I don't know. Ula is suggesting that you should do a tour to all the EM labs. You and the rock band.
An EM lab tour. Yes.
I think we would welcome you with open arms.
Yes, you would have to come then. I could force you to come because it would be very unpolite not to come to this event. So that would probably a career option that I have. But I was thinking that I will try to take this serious. It's now another part of my life, and it will be very different from the previous part. And I think that with time, it also will get great. But right now, I'm still looking for orientation here. Yeah.
But that will come, and you've shared some of the different ideas. I think you've got lots of cool ideas coming together. Before you go, Narin has a very nice question, which is, if you could give Paul of 50 years ago or 20 years ago advice, what would Paul of today's advice be to Paul of the past's advice?
Okay, one thing is probably it's a little bit controversial, I think, as I said, I stuck too long with the methods that I did very well. That was this freeze fracturing, cryo-SEM stuff. And I would switch earlier, but it's a little bit in contradiction to what I said earlier, Fortunately, Hans Mohr spent 20 or 30 years checking out high pressure freezing, and afterwards it came out very well. But with the difference to cryo-SEM is that the limitations became quite obvious already. The limitations that we will never surpass the resolution that we can achieve with this platinum coating. Of course, I tried hard to directly look at the frozen material without platinum coating, but that was difficult. You could get a couple of images and then next time you had a little bit of the charging effects and that everything changed how to without platinum. That was not real fun. But with platinum, it was a lot of fun. And I think I stuck too long with this stuff. I should have switched earlier to go for real cryo-TEM or cryo-STEM method, which we now also started after having got some advice from Sharon and from Michael Elbaum. We now also started with cryo-STEM. And it would have been better if we would have started this a couple of years earlier. Yeah.
But if that's your strongest advice, I think we can only celebrate an amazing career, Paul, because it's always easy to reflect back and think how we could have done things differently, and we could have, should have, but didn't. We didn't know, right? But still, I think it's really commendable. So on behalf of all the community here, I can really only say congratulations on a fantastic career. Personally, I'm so sorry I missed the party in Ulm. But you know what?
Okay.
I think you'll just have to come to Panos next year, and we'll have a backup party if we can do another one.
Good. But the level, so we set the level for the next party. We set it pretty high. I must say so.
Yes, but Felix is already on it. I've already received emails from him, so he's thinking ahead. It's going to go well. I'm looking forward to it. Felix, keep me posted on those dates, right?
Yes, I'm definitely planning to come to the next Panos meeting. Yes, this is always a great event, actually. Yes.
For all the community who doesn't know what Panos is and is wondering, it's been one of my favorite meetings. It's a one-day meeting that happens in Germany every year, and it's a great opportunity to meet colleagues that explore.
Yeah, this is a guy that really helped me sometimes in a very difficult situation. It's Danny Studer. He did a lot of developments for high pressure freezing and actually also cryosectioning and all kind of stuff. He's retired now, and once in Martin Müller's lab, one of the students he did an internship in our lab. He did not show up in the morning, but I was not worried about it. I thought that he probably does not come today or whatever. I didn't take this very serious. I didn't pay any attention at it, that it did not show up. But Danny realized he really had, or still has, a sixth sense for such a situation. And he realized that something might be terribly bad. I think he saw some things that this person started to do this morning, but did not finish. So he immediately started searching that person. And it turned out that this person was unconscious in a room at minus 40 degrees. Yeah. And thanks to Danny, he found this person early enough that he did not get hurt very badly. It was then, we were quite close to the emergency room of the hospital of Zurich, the biggest hospital of Zurich. So he brought this person very quickly to the emergency room, where people then find out that not much went wrong with him. But if Danny would not have had this sixth sense, this story would have ended terribly. Though I'm very grateful for him, and I don't, for all of us, that would have been a heavy burden for the rest of our career if he would not have found this student here. So that's a story that is typical for Danny, but he always cares a lot for people. And when other people would probably, or I would say, oh, come on, I have a lot of stuff to do for myself. I cannot take care for these people too. They should look for themselves. But Danny was always very aware of when people was in problem or so. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It really adds a humanity to science, to the people, to the to just our colleagues. There's much more to it. Right. And that's a very lovely story. I expected when we talked about that question that you would share how someone had helped you scientifically, but I think it's really nice to bring it back to, something so I mean, he saved a person's life. You can't do more for anyone than that, can you? That's incredible. Right. So those are roughly the end of our questions, Paul.
Favorite pictures that I took. Yeah. Okay.
So you have the three was the cryo-SEM, that one, and then the paper from Andrea. I have the reference here. I'll put it in the chat for the paper from Andrea in case anyone is curious. So here it comes. Yes. Mm-hmm. All right. So a few small questions. What is a memory from your career that makes you laugh?
Yes, I can probably tell a little story. That happened, I think it was 1995. So it's not 100 or 200 years ago, but a reasonable amount of time. And to my knowledge, in 1995, the first female professor came to ETH Zurich, actually. 1995, it's just 30 years ago. And of course, that was something very special. And eventually, a good colleague came into my lab because he wanted to do some preparation stuff. And he brought a young woman with him. And he introduced us very, very rapidly, and I didn't quite get it. And I was going with the assumption that she's a diploma student, actually. Yeah. And I took her for a diploma student, and I was a postdoc then. So I think I was, of course, I believed that this is a much higher level than a diploma student. So I tried to be nice with her, but I definitely was a little bit what we would call gönnerhaft in German. I think patronizing is the right word in English, you know. And so I offered her to call me with the first name, to say du to me. Also, this is a German thing, you know, that you don't have really in English. This is a big event, you know, when you switch, when you offer sometimes that he can call you with your first name in Germany, and these days also in Switzerland, this is was a big thing, you know. And I was so patronizing her. I offered her to say Paul to me, blah, 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 blah. And later on, we went to the coffee. And then when the whole group together, she introduced herself again. It turned out that she was his famous new female professor of the ETH. You know? And I was extremely ashamed at this moment. You know, I was absolutely not able to cope with the situation. I think really today we could laugh about this, but this 30 years back, we both, I think also for her, the situation was extremely uncomfortable. And so it was for me.
I would say, though, and this is not meant at all as a criticism to anyone in my new workplace, I've had a few instances here at the VIB where I think people haven't realized who I am. So people have been very friendly and welcoming and chatted with me. And then we have a meeting and they kind of go, oh, you're the new head. So don't worry, Paul. It happens all over the place. And even in the last month. But I don't think it's ever meant bad. You know, it's just, that's how it goes. All right. So that's a memory that makes you laugh. I think slightly uncomfortably and out of embarrassment, but maybe not totally justified, but nice story. So then tell us who has helped you in your career besides the three people who you really mentioned earlier.
Yeah, okay. I could probably also mention a whole bunch of people, and I think, but I can share some pictures.
Your topics, just, you know, it's fabulous. Oh, you've got pictures. This year's
Panos meeting. Yes, yes.
Super.
Yes. I think I have one picture also from the party.
Yeah, oh, yes, your microscope.
That's a microscope that our technician Reinhard Wey, he made it for me, you know. And
it's so cool.
I drove them crazy, I think, because they also composed a wonderful song that they sang together, and they did a lot of practicing. And I didn't know anything about it. And one reason that they could practice is because usually on Monday morning I arrived from Switzerland, so I arrived at noon, you know. So they used the time before for practicing. But one day I decided that I will come already on Saturday evening. So they told me afterwards, they were panicking when I all of a sudden arrived on Monday morning, and they had to stop the rehearsal. And so they did it perfectly, absolutely perfectly. I didn't have any idea that they were planning this. They told me that they were planning something. But I didn't know what it was, and it was so fantastic, actually. Yeah.
So, what are you going to do with your mini microscope? Is it living in your house?
Now it's still in the lab, and I will take it back to here, and then it will stay in my house.
We will stay with you. Oh, that's fantastic. If anyone has any questions, you're welcome to jump in. But I think for now, we can wrap this up officially. Thank you so much, Paul, for this reflection and this chat and just looking back at a career. Well done. Congratulations to you.
It was, thank you.
It was really nice. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It was certainly a great pleasure. And of course, it's only possible because I had so many contacts and knew so many of these wonderful people. Yeah.
No career is done alone, so we're lucky to have such a great community. Thank you, everyone, for this TechEM. We'll be back in today's April. So we'll be back in May. I have lost track of all dates at this point for a great TechEM with Muriel about yeast processing. So we're looking forward to that.
Good.
So thank you very much and have a good day. Ciao.
Okay. Bye-bye.